The last topic in our unit is 5.13, which is methods to reduce urban runoff. So as we talked about, in urban areas, much of the surface is impermeable. It's asphalt, it's roofing material, it's parking lots, etc. And so when precipitation falls in those urban areas, then that water needs to go somewhere. Very little of it is percolating down below the surface, and so it runs off. Now, in well managed areas, that runoff water is diverted into a stormwater system. Catch basins, for example, that have grates along the side of the road can capture that stormwater and funnel it into typically into bodies of water, into streams or things like that. But that water that does run off in those areas, it does pick up some pollutants from running over the impervious surfaces. But there are things that can be done to reduce that. To reduce that urban runoff. One of them is shown here in this picture on the left. This is something called permeable pavement. So this is a parking lot where on the right side we have permeable pavement, and on the left side we have just typical asphalt. Typical asphalt is basically impermeable to water, but this permeable pavement allows for some infiltration through that asphalt surface into the soil below. So that's one method of reducing urban runoff, to utilize more of this permeable pavement. It's not very common. Another idea is to include more tree planting in urban areas. As we know, trees and other plants can absorb water that is falling as precipitation through the roots. And so that can also help to reduce runoff. We see here in this picture, this is Burlington, as some of you might recognize. We have trees planted. We also have pavers. So the walkway here, this is a pedestrian area called Church Street in Burlington, Vermont. And those pavers are permeable because the gaps between the brick pavers allow for some more infiltration than an asphalt road would. And so there are also other ideas. This isn't really related to urban runoff, but smart growth. So smart growth is a method of building and planning urban environments that can reduce environmental impacts, that can make cities more sustainable. And so smart growth has lots of components to it, but it is one way that smart growth tries to make cities more sustainable is by encouraging mixed use. So for example, this is Burlington. This is a pedestrian walkway. There's typically on the ground level, there are storefronts that we can see here. Above those storefronts, we might have apartments or living space. We have restaurants and cafes and shopping. We can see a church here. So this is all in a relatively small area. It's walkable, where people don't need to drive from place to place. A person living in this sort of mixed use community can go to the grocery store, can go shopping, can go to church, can go to restaurants, can have recreational experiences, all within this smaller area that reduces the amount of fossil fuel use to driving from place to place, and sort of a more suburban type of area. And so this helps with lots of different environmental issues. And this is something that is starting to be considered much more in terms of city planning and community planning, building mixed use communities that can provide a variety of services in one area. The use of public transportation is also something that reduces resource use and pollution. If public transportation is accessible, is inexpensive, can get people to a variety of places, then it's going to be utilized more, and people will use public transportation versus driving their own vehicles from place to place. Another idea is building vertically rather than a suburban sort of sprawl type of community. So building vertically increases the density of people in a given area, while reducing the amount of land area that's needed to house those individuals. And that reduces this impervious area as well. So building up rather than out can be also a more sustainable practice and can also be a part of this smart growth strategy.